franktalks.com.
This program does not represent the views of this station and may be considered offensive to some listeners. This program may contain mature subject matter, including frank discussions of controversial topics. It is intended for mature, open-minded audiences. Discretion is highly advised. This program is entirely independently produced by and is copyrighted by Frank. It is broadcast here under license.
Hi, this is Anthony Colace, actor, and you're listening to Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles.
You're listening to Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles, and I'm Frank because I have to be. On today's show, we are talking with Mr. Anthony Colace, who is a professional actor. Welcome to studio, Anthony.
Thank you for having me, Frank.
Let's start off with our very first question, where you were born, and different experiences you had in your life, which eventually led you to be a professional actor.
Well, I was born in Montreal. I'm now living in Toronto, but I was born in Montreal. My background is both my parents are Italian. My mom was actually born here in Canada, but my dad was born in Italy and immigrated here when he was 9. When it comes to acting, my family has been very supportive from the get-go. Ever since I was a child, I always liked to perform in front of people or just entertain people. And my parents always encouraged that. They never shunned me for it.
Is that something that's rare from the background you come from?
I would think so, but my parents are not the typical Italian family, we speak English at home as opposed to Italian, so and they're very open about a lot of things, and they saw that I was, when I finally did get into acting, which was way later on in my life, I was like 22 when I took my first acting course. They were like, okay, yeah, we'll see what he'll do, but they never said, no, don't do that, or what do you think you're doing, you'll never make it, or anything like that.
Can you think of something specific in where your parents supported you before you took your first acting course?
Many things. When I was in karate, for example, they would come to my tournaments and they'd encourage me to do well and practice, and they'd take me to class and things like that. So they were always very supportive in anything I decided to do.
And you said your first acting course you took when you were 22?
22, yes.
Prior to that, what acting experience had you garnered?
None, actually. I just like to imitate people I would see on TV. I would imitate various soap opera actors or wrestlers. And then people would always get a good laugh, and they would always tell me, oh, you should be an actor. And one of my first actual acting experiences or shows that I did for my... I was in kindergarten, and I faked a heart attack and fell down the stairs in front of the teacher, and she actually believed it. So that was the first thing I ever did as an actor that I can remember. I was about 5 years old.
Well, you sound like a bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah, I can be. All in good fun.
And the teacher actually believed it. What happened?
Well, she was like, my God, like, what's going on? And then she was like running down, and all the other kids didn't know what to make of it, because I didn't tell anyone. I just, oh my God, my heart, and I fell down the stairs. And I didn't get hurt or anything, and the teacher came running down, and then I just got up and was laughing, and she was like, didn't know what to do. She was stunned. She was half relieved that I was actually okay, and half, I think, wanted to kill me because of what I just did.
Well, understandably so.
And I was amused by it. Like, I enjoyed it. There was like a rush that just came.
22 years old, you're about to take your first acting class. How did you even come across?
I was working in a hospital at the time, and I was management, and I was just fed up I said to myself, there's got to be more to life than just working. I was working many hours, I was making good money, but I was miserable. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. What do I want to do? And ever since I was young, I always liked watching movies, and I'd always say, I'd love to make movies, but nah, you can't do it. Like, to myself, I would say, no, you can't. It's too hard, And so one day I called up one of my cousins, and she's like, well, why don't you just look in the paper, find a school, and take a few courses? And I was like, yeah, it's not a bad idea. So I remember opening up the Gazette. I went and buy the Gazette, and I opened it up, and this acting school came up, and so I went there, and I took a course, and that's how it all started.
And what school did you go to?
The first one I went to was the New Actors Workshop. It's, I believe, still open. It's in Sherbrooke Street in Montreal. Well, actually, it's on Queen Mary. Sorry, Queen Mary.
And what was that experience like for you, given that you had the interest, but no prior experience?
Well, I went, and my teacher was Andreas Hussman, who was renowned in Montreal theatre. He's pretty well known. He owned Imago Company for theatre, and he was a very good teacher. And I remember at the end of the class, we put on a show, and a lot of people came up to me after the show, because you could invite your guests and friends over to watch. And they're like, so how long have you been an actor? Your scene was really good. And I'm like, this is my first class, my second scene. We had done one prior, but, it wasn't in front of people. And a lot of people were like, wow, like they were really impressed. And my teacher said, you have something. And so I continued from there. He goes, you still need work. But he goes, there is something there. He goes, you're a diamond in the rough, and I'll never forget it. And he told me I could take direction well, and I just had something, so I continued from then on.
Do you remember exactly what the scene was?
House of Corrections was the actual scene. With the acting partner was Sam, and I go into his house and work my way in that I know him and his wife, but I really don't, and they know this, but they let me stay. And then I'm down in the basement. This is where the scene takes place, and I'm working on something. He comes home, and he's like, so what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm just building something, whatever. And he's like, I was speaking to my wife, like, when are you going to get out of here? Because, we really don't know you. And I just keep rambling on, and I'm like, you have such a nice bedroom. And he's like, what? It was like, and I basically tell him I slept with his wife. And he attacks me, and I put him down, and that was the scene. So it was very intense.
So you do that as a first scene.
Yeah.
People really liked it.
Yeah.
You felt that this was for you?
Well, I enjoyed the rush of just feeling the audience vibe. And it was just nothing else like it. Like, after that class, we went all out together as a group after the performances, and it was just like, the rush was just there. Like, I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
How many classes have you taken since then?
Afterwards, I moved on. I took a few more classes at that school with various teachers. Then that teacher, Andreas Hussman, opened up his own school called the Acting Project, which is now closed due to the fact that he moved to the U.S. So it closed down. But it was a school where a lot of talented actors came out of the original class that we worked in, and we made actually a film together, which has not been finished. It's still not edited completely, but it was a great school, and a lot of a lot of people got work out of us. Like, I moved on to Toronto, others went to Vancouver, some got a TV show or on TV, one did a couple Hollywood pictures. So a lot of the actors moved on from that school.
Do you remember any names that people might recognize?
Sean Hall, Kathleen Mackey, Jackie Alessiang, they all came from that school. So it was a pretty, and even the actors that came after the initial class, the initial group as I call us, they also got work, various agents and things. So it was a very good atmosphere in the school.
Let's talk a little bit about your job in the hospital before you took your first acting class. How did you land into that role, even though your interest was in acting?
I worked in a cinema, believe it or not, when I started college. And it was Montreal. It was Cinema Le Mirage, which used to be Le Astre in St. Leonard. And the manager at the time saw I was a hard worker. I would always do my job and then talk with the other ushers or with the other girls there. But I was always very responsible. And so one day he said, would you like to make $14 an hour as opposed to minimum wage? You're talking 10 years ago now. So, that's a lot of money. And I was like, yeah, sure, and he's like, my brother owns a hospital cleaning contract, and we can get you started there. And he's like, only you I want to take, because, you've shown that, you're willing to work. So he set me up with his brother, and that's how I started in that field.
So it wasn't because you had any particular education in it? You just knew somebody who liked you?
I just knew somebody who liked me. I went there, and I learned quickly how to do use all the various cleaning machines and how to remove wax from a floor and refinish the floor. And I was like, I don't know, I picked up to it very easily. And
but then why be miserable?
After a while, it became that we got another contract. So it was like 2 buildings merged into one, and a lot of the responsibility got put on my shoulders, and that was fine. But I felt I wasn't being compensated. I was doing all the physical labor, like 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. I did that for 2 years straight. I was also helping with a lot of the finances of the company, like arranging to get financing for like expanding and other things. And I just felt I wasn't being recognized fairly, and I was just always miserable. So I decided one day, that's it. I've had enough.
Now let's compare that with some of the pleasures you experience being a professional actor.
There's a lot of rewards. I like to, I love to entertain people. It's what I do. When I hear someone laugh at something I've said or some imitation I do, it gives me a high. So that's definitely one thing. I like to meet people and say, well, I saw your film and you made me think this way, or it changed me in this way, or your acting was really, it made me see things in a different light. So that really gives me another, high, I would guess, or just talking with people, interacting with people, because they're amazed that, how did you do this, or how did you do that?
Tell me about that high. Tell me about exactly what you're feeling and where you're feeling it.
When I do a high in terms of live performance, I've done, we did actually a Master Mentalist show, which was a mock hypnotist show. It was at the Fringe Festival in 2002, and people at the first show thought it was real. And the guy who's hypnotizing us starts to do things that are unethical, and people thinking it was real started to get a really tense vibe, and you could just pick it up off the audience. And so it was like, is it real? Is it not? Is it this? Is it that? And that first night, people thought it was real. Like afterwards, it was in the newspaper, and so by the second and third night, people knew, okay, this is kind of a show, and then more of our friends came, and it was just a different vibe from the audience you pick up. And after that show, it was as if I was like high, as if I had smoked joints. It was like high in my stomach, where my heart was beating the whole show. It was just an adrenaline rush, I would guess.
So, what part did you play in this mock hypnotist show?
I was playing a character. Well, it started off, we all start off in the audience, and they would pick actual members of the audience without actors to go up on stage, and as we're being hypnotized, they'd weed out the non-actors. So that's what people thought it was real. And I was playing a person who directed porn. And so a lot of people, when I mentioned Wild Rose Productions, knew it's a Montreal porn production, and they were like, oh, so this guy actually does work for Wild Rose. And so that was my character in the hypnosis. And then we ended it off that he sends us off back into the audience, but we're still under hypnosis. And he leaves because he's getting drunk as this whole thing. He's always taking a swig of his coffee, but it's really booze. And he just leaves us there, and then eventually, slowly, we all come out of it. And people are scared because, like, we've said things about ourselves personally that they're like, and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? When I come out of it, they're like, oh, nothing. And it was to the point where people followed us outside to see if we were all meeting up laterwards at a cafe nearby, and they were like, people followed us there and said, oh, okay, it was fake, because they really thought it was real.
Was this done as a social experiment?
I don't think at the beginning, no, like we didn't know it would go that far. Like this is just a show. It's on the festival, so it should be a show. But one guy came up to us and said, I was thinking of calling the cops because I was sure that this was real. So it was really a high.
Let's talk about different genres. Mm-hmm. You mentioned you like making people laugh, you like to make people think. Mm-hmm. Would you say that you have a knack for comedy, or do you have a preference for drama?
I think naturally, I like to do comedy naturally. It feels, that's me. I'm sort of a comedian. I like to make people laugh and things like that. I like playing the serious role as I think more for me it's more challenging to play the serious role, especially when it's kind of like the tortured bad guy. That's what I really like to do. And I think I would like to explore that more because it's more challenging to me.
Can you give me examples of a tortured bad guy? Because I'm not really clear on the character.
Tortured bad guy. Okay, a guy that maybe he's like James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. he was a bad kid, but not really that bad, but he was really, tortured. Like, inner tortures. So, for the bad guy that you like to hate, kind of like Al Pacino and Donnie Brasco, he is the bad guy, but you feel for him, because he's such a real character, and you're like, at the end of the movie when he knows he's gonna die, he takes off his rings, and he leaves, $5 that he has left for his wife, and you feel for him, even the fact that this guy has killed 27 other people, you still feel bad for him knowing that it's his turn to get whacked.
You are listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles, and we'll be back right after this.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, a man's guide to the emotional needs of women. Ladies, do you want the man in your life to understand you on your level? Do you want your man to be able to listen to and address all of your emotional needs? Show him how much you really want your relationship to be the best it can be. Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test makes a perfect gift. The book, written by a man, for men, is endorsed by every woman that reads it. This book is a guide for men to understand exactly what a woman means when she speaks. Is that worth changing your life forever? Buy this book at franktalks.com now.
You want to learn new things? Want to meet new people? Want to discover real possibilities? Listen to Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles, in making the world a better place. Be sure to visit our website at www.franktalks.com for the most up-to-date information and the latest downloads of programs just like the one you are listening to now.
Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles mission statement. Our mandate is to make the world a better place by sharing information and interviewing people who actively experience and live various different pleasures and lifestyles in order to inspire and educate listeners about the possibilities to lead more interesting and fulfilling lives.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles, and I'm Frank because I have to be. In studio today we have Mr. Anthony Colace, a professional actor, and he's giving us a little bit of a window on the world of being a professional actor. Welcome back to studio, Anthony.
Hey, Frank.
In our last segment we ended off talking about different genres in which you like to perform. Mm-hmm. We were talking about comedy, playing the character type of the tortured bad guy.
Yeah.
What other types of genres have you done, or are you looking forward to do?
Well, I've done, I played in one short film I did in Toronto, which was called, the working title was called Al the Thief, and I was Al, and I was really a nasty, I planned a robbery of a guy's home, and I was really a nasty guy, like a guy you don't like. I hit women, I shoot people, I was just one of those characters, like way over the edge. And I actually enjoyed doing it because it was something really different. I never played that before. So I enjoyed that one.
What other projects have you been on? I'm looking for a variety here.
I've been on a show called The Wrong Show, which was a show kind of things that you wouldn't normally do. You go out and you would ask people on the street, who do you think would be the better porn star? This guy, or that guy. And I was one of those guys. Or just playing pranks on each other. That was what The Wrong Show was about. It was a really wacky show. There was a pilot episode that was filmed of it, and there was a lot of different actors were used throughout the show. Yeah, that was another project I did. I did a show called Cinema Fix, a pilot, in Toronto, and it was about, the show was a typical movie show where you had your host interviewing a guest about a movie topic, and then my segment was a 5-minute film school segment where I went to a special effects house and interviewed how they make the effects for movies. So it was called Film School, and that was my part of the show.
So in doing all of these different projects, one question we have to ask you as an actor. When you have a role that is something you've never played, something maybe that you've never done,
mm-hmm.
How do you model that? How do you get into that part?
Okay, well, it depends. If it's for a film, I have one way to prepare. If it's for theatrical or theater, I have a different way. People don't notice, but when you're acting in theater, it's a different style of acting. you can be more operatic in a theater role. You have to be almost to reach the entire audience, because like you can take a big gesture in a theatrical role and it'll pass. If you do that on film, you can't. So you have to prepare your body not to make such big motions on film. So that's the first step I take. Second step is I try to watch maybe a character similar to that and pick off ideas. Okay, if this character is funny or has a certain quirk, I'll watch characters that have quirks, like Dustin Hoffman in Midnight Cowboy. You know, how he was walking around with that limp, you know, something like that. And I'll try to, afterwards, I go over the script over and over again. I'll talk with the director, see what he wants. And I just like reading it over and over again and working the character out that way.
Have you ever played a character that was doing something that you personally were against and had a problem playing that character?
To date, so far, no. Because, I mean, it's just an acting job. I've beaten women in my film, which I don't do in real life, and I didn't have a problem with it. I've been a real lush in some films and some projects, and that's fine. You know, a guy that gets stepped on and things like that, and is really, that's not me also, and there was no problem with that.
Do you ever get worried that people watching the films will make a connection and assume that the person they see in the film is the person who you really are?
If they do, then I've done my job right, because they believed my character. So if they come away saying that guy was a real well, then I did my job right. If they think I'm an then in that film, in that role, I did the job right.
So you're not at all worried that they're going to assume that you see it as a plus?
Yes. I mean, film is a suspension of disbelief. Whether it's acting is a suspension of disbelief, so I see it as a plus.
Let's talk about some of the obstacles you've had to overcome in order to be a professional actor. What would you say are some of the major obstacles?
The biggest obstacle in anything I've ever done is myself. My own self-talk. Self-doubt. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. What makes you think you're good enough to do this? Once I'm over that, anyone or anything gets in my way, I know I can overcome it. Because I've overcome my greatest fear, myself. Failure.
How often does that happen?
When I started to act, it came in really strong. Because it's like the fear of the unknown. You know, what will happen? I had a steady job, a well-paying job. And what will happen to me 5 years down the road, you know? Because what acting is like, in professional sports, if you're going to try to make it in the NBA or as a hockey player, for example, you know at a certain point, no one's drafted you, no one's even looking at you anymore, you're done. With acting, it could be the next day. Maybe the next day after you quit or decided, I'm not going to do this anymore, they would have chosen you. So you don't know, and especially if you're getting good reviews or you're doing good work, and like I get a lot of callbacks now in Toronto, and the casting agents, they just ask for me. Like, my agent doesn't have to submit. If they think I'm right for the role, they tell me to come in for the audition. And my agent said that's good because they know you can work well. You won't embarrass them in front of the client. So, but like, if the client doesn't want me for my certain look or for whatever reason, someone was better or better suited for the part, when will it finally be me? See, it's hard to know, you know, so it gives you worries in the back of your head, you know. Do I continue? Am I doing the right thing? If I stop, what if I had gone to one more audition? You know, so that's the greatest, I think, obstacle for me that I had to overcome.
And it's amazing that you would have to fight through so much self-doubt when you've had other people constantly telling you how good you are. And how do you balance that?
I mean, it's, even though people have said I'm good, when I look at myself on camera and I see the scene, oh, I could have done it better. Or maybe I should have done it this way or that way. I did it a lot more at the beginning. Now I'm more comfortable. I'm like, maybe I could have done it better, and maybe that day I couldn't. So I'm much more comfortable with that now. And I've had pretty good reviews so far. So I mean, I'm starting to get more comfortable with it. It's just the fact that sometimes I've walked into an audition, get the callback, go to the callback. There was one particular commercial I did for MasterCard or an audition, and it was really good. I got the callback went excellent. I had everyone laughing. And even the execs were right there, and they were all like, great job, and I'm like, I know I got this. And I didn't end up, like, I didn't get it. So it's like, that's where it starts to weigh in again, you know, like, okay, I walk away knowing I did a good job, so that gives me confidence. Okay, they wanted someone else, or somebody had a certain look that they wanted, and that's fine.
Do you find that that itself is an obstacle, the way you look?
A lot of people cast type me as an Italian, or, you know, They want to see me in more darker roles, more drama series than comedy. I don't find it necessarily a problem. Actually, there was one casting director who my agent was trying to submit me for a movie filming in Toronto with Whoopi Goldberg, and I would have had on-screen time with her, like 30-second, me and her actually talking, and then I would still be on screen, but, and my agent submitted me. They needed an Italian guy to be playing the part, Italian-Canadian or Italian-American, and the casting director said, oh, no, he's not Italian enough. My agent said, what do you mean? He's the real deal. He speaks Italian. He's Italian. Like, how can you not? So, like, I don't understand. I'm not Italian enough. I don't know. That's what she said, but...
With all of that going on, how do you stay motivated?
I watch a lot of films I like, and I try and, like for Al Pacino or Robert De Niro, I try and watch their biographies, certain actors, and see that they struggled. A lot of these guys were sleeping in apartments of friends on the floor. Pacino slept at the Actra studio in New York. So, I mean, that's where they allowed him to sleep there because he had no money to go anywhere else. So, and I'm like, these guys had to struggle before they got their break, and so you have to stay motivated. Keep doing a good job, I believe. Keep working, even if it's a small part. And, well, now I'm in the union, so it's harder to take non-union work. But to try to keep working, work through it, keep improving yourself, and eventually somebody will notice, hey, that guy's pretty good, I want him in my movie.
We talked about the obstacles. Let's talk about the sacrifices. Tell me a little bit of the day-to-day lifestyle of a professional actor at your level, and what do you have to sacrifice to do it?
Okay, well, contrary to a lot of belief, actors don't make a lot of money. I believe the national Canadian average is $5,000 a year. This includes all the big actors making money. And in Canada, even the well-paid actors that you see on CBC, they're making about $60,000-$70,000 a year. So it's not a whole lot of money. If you're at that level, it's good money. If you want to make big money, you got to go to the U.S. It's number one. So at my level, I can go on set and make $2,000 in a day, which is good money for a day. But then I may not work for 2 months. So I got to have a job. I work part-time at a gym. I do the counter work. I do maintenance, and I clean now. So, and because I do the cleaning and maintenance work, I can do a full shift on my time when I want. So it helps me, and they're very, I can change my hours if I have to. If I have an audition, show up a little late, or, if I have to film for a commercial, I can take the day off. So you gotta find a job where it's hard to make a lot of money because you can't devote yourself to your job.
Have you ever worked as a waiter? Stereotypical job as an actor?
Oh, I won't do it.
Why not?
It's just I had a former agent who once told me, he goes, whenever I see a waiter, I ask him, who's your agent? Because, almost all waiters or waitresses are actors, and that's okay. But, I don't know, if you're a waiter or an actor for 15 years, then you're a waiter, you're no longer an actor. If you've been doing that job for 15 years, then you're no longer the actor. I don't know.
So we got a day-to-day lifestyle. Let's talk about the sacrifices. What have you had to sacrifice?
I sacrificed the security of a good job. I was making quite a bit of money. Even after I left the hospital, I went to manage my friend's restaurant, and I was making good money, and I was only working 40 hours a week. And I was making good money, and I could have bought into the chain of restaurants, which is Mangione Pizzas, and they're in Montreal. And I used to work at the one at Place Bonaventure and things like that, and I could have bought into the chain, made good money. Living in Montreal, the rent is cheap. I moved to Toronto. I moved to Toronto and rent went up, expenses went up, and my salary went down. So it was a big adjustment, if I go out and blow $50 on one night going to the movies and going here or there, buying myself something, I gotta think for the next week or two I can't spend any money. Because, I don't want to go into any debt. I'm not one of those people. There's some people that like to max up their credit cards. I don't. I have no debt. I have money put away for my retirement already, and I don't want to go into that, touch that money. It's there for that reason. And so it's so hard. There's certain things I want to buy. I got 2 muscle cars sitting at home in Montreal that I don't take out anymore because, to plate them and take them out, especially now with gas prices, is just too much. So these are things I had to give up. Seeing my family on a regular basis. My sister had a child, my nephew. He's 1.5. I've seen him. I come back every 8 weeks or so. But, every time I see him, he's grown up so much more. And I'm missing that because I'm out there.
You said you were born in Montreal, moved to Toronto.
Yeah.
Why? Why not stay in Montreal, be close to your family?
To pursue acting in Montreal was almost a dead avenue. American films do come here, but they bring most of their own actors already cast in the role. And the actors that they do take, the Canadian actors, to fill in the smaller roles are only an elite group that Actra, I'm Actra too, but there's like that group that they know will perform well, so they always send those same people. And to break that ring is very difficult. In Montreal there's no English theater, the Centaur, but that's very small. In Toronto you can actually make a living, a very decent living doing theater, like making a lot of money. In Montreal you can't. In Toronto they film a lot of commercials. You can make good money on commercials. In Montreal they don't film as many. They film TV shows in Toronto. In Montreal they don't. So you have a much greater opportunity to make it as an actor.
If you had to choose acting for film or theater, which is it?
That's really tough. I haven't done that much theater. I've done a few productions and I enjoyed it very much. It's something, each show is different because the audience vibe is different, depending on your audience, and you have to keep it fresh. But I think if you're a good cast and you gel properly, it stays fresh even when you're on stage. Acting for theater, you feel that audience vibe, but acting for film, it's usually so much time you spend together and it's high energy throughout that whole time, even though the hours are long. And I enjoy it because afterwards when we see the finished product up on screen and people are like, how did you do that? Well, we know the stories behind what you're seeing on camera. If you move that camera just half a foot more over, you'll see someone draping, hanging all the wires and things like that, or what's in the background. We see that. You people who are watching the film don't see that. So it has its advantages as well.
You are listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles. We'll be back right after this.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, a man's guide to the emotional needs of women. Ladies, do you want the man in your life to understand you on your level? Do you want your man to be able to listen to and address all of your emotional needs? Show him how much you really want your relationship to be the best it can be. Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test makes a perfect gift. The book, written by a man, for men, is endorsed by every woman that reads it. This book is a guide for men to understand exactly what a woman means when she speaks. Is that worth changing your life forever? Buy this book at franktalks.com now.
From Loser to Seducer is the story of Frank B. Kermit. This book marks the triumph of a nice guy over most of his inner demons. This includes going from being a loser to managing 5 lovers at the same time, his first Valentine's date with 2 women at the same time, and getting back the one that got away. Want to learn how you can change your life? Buy this book at franktalks.com.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by the book, I'm a Man, That's My Job, The Philosophy of a Seducer. Ladies, have you ever wondered where all the real men have gone? Do you turn to your women friends because you cannot find a true man in your life? Do you want the man in your life to step up and know what it means to be a man that can make you feel like the woman that you are? Are you tired of mothering the men you date? Give these boys the gift of manhood. The book, I'm a Man, That's My Job, teaches men to create their own seduction persona, personal inner game, and how to take the lead in a relationship. Buy this book now at franktalks.com.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles, and I'm Frank because I have to be. We're in studio today with Mr. Anthony Colace, who is a professional actor. Welcome back to studio, Anthony.
Frank, good to be here.
Let's go back into the idea of the different projects that you've been on. Now, we touched on a few of them before. Are there any really major works that you're proud of?
My first film, which was the Meatball story, it's I believe the first all-digital, all-black and white feature-length film ever shot in the world as far as we know. It was very low budget, shot in Montreal, and I think it started, I worked with Rocco, who I've worked with on a few projects since then. And we learned a lot from that film, what to do, what not to do, what you can get away with, what you can't, what the audience will believe, and how to set up for a film shoot and things like that. And that we learned so much from that when we made our second film, Truant Cafe, People were amazed at the difference of quality. They would actually come up to us and say, like, how much money did you spend on that film? Like 100,000? And we're like, no, a lot less than that, like 5,000 or less we made the film for, and it's a feature-length film. Like, nobody does that. So, I mean, those are two projects. Truant is going to be released most likely at a film festival in Toronto. An Canadian independent film festival is screening the film now. It may be released in March to go on at their showcase in Toronto, and if it wins, it can win good money, and hopefully it does.
Let's talk a little bit about, you said the Meatball story?
Yes.
Alright, how long was that film?
The Meatball story, I believe, was an hour and 47 minutes or so. That's feature length.
And tell me about your part in that.
In the Meatball story, let's see, I played a Italian restaurant owner who goes a little crazy by the end of the movie because of what his brother is doing. A little, well, a lot crazy, probably.
Are you able to tell us what that was?
Yeah, the fact is, his brother is dating the mob boss's daughter. Not daughter, sorry, the mob boss's daughter-in-law. And she ends up sleeping with my brother, Paul. And he seems, oh, it's okay, I'm sleeping with her, blah, blah, blah. And then she ends up killing her husband and doesn't know what to do, so she brings the body to the restaurant, and she's like, why don't we chop him up into meatballs? And I'm like, what are you guys, crazy? So I leave because I'm like freaking out because the mob boss is actually coming over. Like at this point, he's asking, you know, can I come by and eat something? And we got this body there, so I take off. They end up chopping up the body and feeding it to people, and it ends up getting really out of control where they start making a lot of money. I come back, I get in on it because of the amount of money, and things just keep getting worse and worse. And we're killing this guy and then that guy. We have to hide this and hide that, and it just keeps spinning out of control. Oh yeah.
Sorry, it just sounds like quite the roller coaster ride.
Oh yeah, it was.
And with the same producer-director, you went on to do Truant Cafe.
Yes, and Truant Cafe is a much different film. It's basically two guys talking in a restaurant about life, and it has a few interesting twists throughout the movie. And it's shot in a very different way because the way it's edited, it's a lot of split screen, so it's very nicely edited. And it helps the story flow much better. And it has a lot of takes that, you know, you flash back to the past, you flash to the future, you know, what will happen if we do this. So it's a very uniquely edited film. And I think it'll do quite well on the independent circuit.
Of those two top projects you've been on, which is your favorite?
Meatball is special because it's the first film I've ever been in. And it will always be. And even though technically it's not quite there, it's something that I have so many memories of being on set. You know, I believe the first time we were on set, none of us had ever done a film or any feature-length film, not even MJ the director. So it was like, hey, none of us know what we're doing. We were all, I think, a little scared. And you know what? By the second weekend when we were shooting, I think we gelled pretty well as a cast. And it's evident, you see in the beginning, it's a little, the angles used are a little more raw and the acting is a little bit, you know, by the second weekend, you see that like the second part of the movie, the acting gets much better, the camera use gets much better.
How long did it take to shoot?
We shot it in about roughly 3 weekends, and then we did some smaller takes throughout, let's say the next month or so, 2 months. And in total, I'd say total hours on set was about 50 hours. So we shot a feature in 50 hours, which is unheard of. Normally it takes months, 3 months to shoot a feature at, you know, 15 hours a day. But, you know, we can't afford to do that, so the same thing with Truant Cafe. We shot that in, once again, 2 weekends, the major work. And me and my co-actor, at one point, we went through, for the master shot, we went through 25 pages of script in 1 take. So, like, we would do the take, 25 pages straight of script is a long time. And then it was like, okay, take another take of that, and then another take from this point forward. So that might be some kind of record, I don't know.
It'd be interesting to find out. You mentioned that, where were they shot?
Meatball was shot in Montreal, and Truant Cafe was primarily shot in Toronto, with some scenes in Montreal, and one scene at Port Hope, I believe, in Toronto, and out in the water on Lake Ontario.
Where else have you traveled to?
I've recently been to LA, Los Angeles, Beverly Hills. I went and meet with some agencies down there. I took a demo of my best work. Various work that I've done for in Truant Cafe, Meatball Story, and Cinema Fix, and a few other projects I worked on. Made a demo. I also cut some other scenes in there, like stereotypical me playing the bad guy Italian, a bookie was my money type deal. Things like that. Put that in my demo reel, went to LA with it, met with 17 agencies, the top agencies in Los Angeles. Most of them shunned me away. 7 of them took my demo reel and headshot and said, we'll see what we can do with this. So hopefully it works out.
If you could go back in time and give yourself some advice, what would it be?
In terms of acting or myself?
Both.
Both. Well, in terms of acting, which is the easier one, I would say start it sooner. You've always liked to do it. And I would go see myself when I was like 8 and say, you know what, this is what you like to do. Or maybe even earlier than that, and say, you know what, get into it, go talk to your parents about it, and start taking classes, maybe around the age of 8 or 10.
Is that because you feel your age has worked against you?
No, I would have liked to have started it sooner. Because, it would have given me more time, I think, to break into it and, given myself more time to adjust to, the lifestyle I'm leading. When it comes to giving myself advice as a person, I would go back and tell myself, just do it. Don't be afraid of anything. Don't waste time on what if. What if this never happens, or what if this happens? Don't waste time with what if. I say this to anyone. Don't waste time with what if until it happens. Be aware that it could happen, but don't waste time on it until it does happen, and then deal with it.
I'd like to ask you about your road from going from starting to be an actor to now being a member of Actra. Is that correct?
Yes.
What had to happen for that?
Becoming a member of Actra is kind of like a catch-22. You can go and audition for an Actra role, but they can't hire you for the Actra part unless they've screened already so many actors in advance for your part and were unsatisfied with them. At that point there, you have to buy a permit to work on set, and you become an Actra apprentice. You need 6 permits. Unless you're a minority, then you need 3 before you become a full Actra member and get full benefits.
Are you considered a minority?
No. Minorities, I believe, are Asians, Africans. Certain people qualify for minority.
Italians don't?
No. So you need to do that process. You need to get an agent first. I suggest go out, do some work, anything, church basement theater, anything. Try to get some film work done, even if it's a small part, anything that you can show an agent. Before you go to an agent, have headshots ready. And if an agent charges you money for anything more than a headshot, they're full of it. Like, don't. If they say, you need $200 to represent you for the year or whatever, don't. A good agency will charge you nothing, especially if you have your own headshots done. They'll even tell you to go get them done. And then they only make money when you make money. They don't make money if you don't make money. It's usually 15% cut plus GST whenever you work, so they have to pay the GST to the government, and that's it. If they're charging you more, get a new agent. Don't waste time with them.
So that's generally a general warning for anybody who wants to become an actor.
Yes, there's a lot of casting agents, especially if they're advertising in the newspaper, then they're really full of it. They're not going to ask you for money up front or take these courses to learn, and they're making money off of it. No. They don't make any money off of you unless you make money for them.
If someone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
I have a website. It's called anthonycolace.com.
Can you spell that, please?
Yeah, ANTHONYCOLACE.com. You can email me at anthony@anthonycolace.com.
And your website features what exactly?
At the moment, it's still under construction. Right now, it has my headshot that I'm currently using and my resume of everything I've been on. It will have segment clips, like, Truant Cafe. You can go click on it, and it'll show you clips from Truant Cafe, Meatball Story clips, various different headshots of myself. Yeah.
Let's talk about future aspirations. Where do you see yourself going in the future?
I'd like to go to Hollywood and start making Hollywood productions. I would like to, obviously, I see myself always acting no matter what. Even if I decide to take another career path, I'll always do acting for fun. If MJ ever says, hey, let's do a little film or something, I'll always do it. But my goal right now, and even for the next 2 years, is to really break the US market, whether it's either film or television.
So in about 10 years from now, you want to be living in Hollywood?
Yeah. I went to LA recently and I liked it. I found it alright. I was staying in Beverly Hills, so I had a pretty good time, and I found it alright.
Any particular companies you'd want to work for down there?
I've always liked Paramount. I don't know why, and it's just I've always liked Paramount, Universal. Probably those two.
Anthony, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on set here at Frank Talks. And one last time, can we have your email address as well as your website address for people who wish to get in contact with you?
Yes, my email address is anthony@anthonycolace.com. That's ANTHONYCOLACE.
Any part that you would not accept?
No, I'll do pretty well. I mean, within the acting realm, I'll do whatever I have to do. Yeah.
All right. Well, we definitely wish you luck.
Thank you, Frank.
You're listening to Frank Talks, Pleasures, and Lifestyles.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, a man's guide to the emotional needs of women. Ladies, do you want the man in your life to understand you on your level? Do you want your man to be able to listen to and address all of your emotional needs? Show him how much you really want your relationship to be the best it can be. Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test makes the perfect gift. The book, written by a man, for men, is endorsed by every woman that reads it. This book is a guide for men to understand exactly what a woman means when she speaks. Is that worth changing your life forever? Buy this book at franktalks.com now.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com. franktalks.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating, or relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com. What do you do when you feel like a fool? When your heart has been broken again? Pick up the phone or get onto Skype and talk on a private session. Yeah, get a little help from Frank Talks. Whoa, whoa, get by with a little help from Frank Talks. You gotta try a little help from Frank Talks. What do you do when your love goes away? Try coaching one-on-one. How do I sign up to turn things around? Just sign up at franktalks.com. Yeah, get by with help from Frank Talks. I get by with a little help from Frank Talks. Time to try a little help from Frank Talks. Does it cost a lot of money? It's the best rate going around. Could it cost a lot of money? Oh, it's worth every cent that you will put down. Yeah. franktalks.com. Oh, you got to go to franktalks.com. Get your help from Frank Talks. for certain, just read the reviews. Frank knows his stuff, and Frank's got goods. Good love can soon come to you.